Now, so we have a handful of topics to get to. Robocalls is going to be a big one. We'll get to that after the suspected killer, D'Angelo suspect, like I just said.
You're
we
pointing
get to
at me
that
like I'm the suspect.
Yeah, and then we're talking fashion. I'm trying to cover it all so you guys stay here. Just get going
I've
with the
been
story.
eliminated as a suspect.
Oh, Lord.
God. Go.
Or have you?
What would you like to?
I would like the update on Joseph D'Angelo because the people
there's
want to know.
new charges. I guess Santa Barbara area
Yes.
has discovered that perhaps he was involved with 4 murders down there from 1978 to 1986. I believe that's the time frame.
Yes.
He was traveling allegedly, saying allegedly a lot, up and down the state. So everybody's starting to tie in this whole thing. So he's now right around 12 to 14 suspected murders and 50 plus rapes as we sit today.
And due back in court.
Monday morning, 8:30, Department 61 at the courthouse.
Okay, and none of this is
Down the
surprising to us, the fact that now the different counties are saying, okay, we are going to start, wanting to speak with him as well, because we know that his killing, again, he's still just a suspect in this case, but killing spanned up and down California. But let's talk about his defense attorney and then Sacramento's district attorney.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously these charges, you read what he's been charged with and that he's linked to the DNA, 100% to the DNA. And I might say that in terms of DNA, and a lot of people may not know this, but all of our DNA is exactly 99.9% the same. Your DNA, my DNA, everyone's DNA is 99.9% the same. It's the 0.1% that separates all of us.
Okay.
So, when somebody says, oh, it's like, well, all of us are pretty much a match to each other. But there is enough that they were found in this 0.1% that puts him at all these crime scenes where there's DNA available. So it looks pretty damning if you're his defense attorney. However, like anything else, you have to go through the investigation, the charges. He has to have his day in court. He has to be in front of jurors that hopefully can look at the case without being jaded or having read a ton of information to already cause them to have made up their decision. So it's a difficult situation that Diane Howard and the Public Defender's Office has in order to get this guy a fair trial. We had something the other day, the campaign ad for Anne Marie Schubert, who I'm going to talk to on Tuesday. She's rerunning for DA. But obviously the ad said DNA, it's come a long way, and I've had a lot of hand in this, and I helped solve the Golden State Killer East Area Rapist case. And when I heard the word solved, I thought, wow, that's saying the case is solved. Does this mean we're not going to have a trial? Does this mean what's the point of all this? I thought it was a little, but it is a campaign ad. And there's a difference, I learned, that solved can mean that the police are satisfied with, and the DA are satisfied with the information to make an arrest. They've solved the case. It's now up to the court to adjudicate it, which is now, with a trial, he's either found to be guilty or innocent. So solved can mean many things to me. It's a gray area. To me, it means the case is over. Hey, I've solved the case. What? Oh, nothing left to see here. Right?
It's
Nothing
another classic example of lawyer language and people language being very different. When I hear solved, I say it's over. But according to the process, it's nice, and it's nice to learn these things because they're allowed to say things like that according to the way that they view things through legalese.
Yeah, we do have a statement that I got from D'Angelo's attorney, which we're going to put up on the screen here. And so I reached out to her to see if she would talk, and I said, the solved thing, tell me about the solved in the campaign ad. She says, I feel the press, all its forms, there you go, that they've turned my client into a guilty man. And without the benefit of the protections and all that kind of stuff. We have to go through the process. That's what Diane Howard is saying. And she feels that he may not get his fair day in court.
That leads perfectly into Nicole Cate's comment. She's saying that everyone is so quick to judge. She even blames the media for influencing the public opinion. And she says that if this were your family member at home, you would want a fair trial for that family member. So why not give him the same respect?
This is as close to a public outcry of going back to the 1800s where the town folk bust into the county jail and haul the suspect out with their burning torches and hang them high in the middle of the street. I mean, there's that fever in the region because of everybody, how fearful they were during this reign. And this guy very well be guilty, but he's got to go through the fair process here.
Yeah, but Nikki Strangelove is saying that, nuh-uh, if this were my family member and I had clear evidence that they were guilty for rape and murder, she said I would throw away the key. Like, they're done to her. And
I understand how people feel, and that factors into a lot of what I think about this. I mean, people were just, you're asleep in the middle of the night and you wake up and there's a flashlight in your face, and for the next 12 hours, things are happening that you'll never forget. I think about that. However, there's no argument at all that he has to go through the system.
Right.
We can't. Because if I'm D'Angelo's defense attorney, I'm going after this DNA, how it was collected from the genealogy website. Was it correctly? It could be totally 100% him. But if it wasn't collected properly, and that's what will come out in this trial, this guy, I don't know that he's going to walk. And I cited the Al Capone thing before in Chicago. Al Capone murdered a bunch of people in Chicago. They could never pin it to him. But he did life in prison for tax evasion. They finally got him for something. And it could be that that's what happens here.
And even though we all sort of have this feeling with what we know so far, the highest standard in law is a death penalty conviction. Okay, so that's the legal bar on that is really high because it has to be the jury. First of all, the prosecutor has to agree that those are appropriate charges because now their burden of proof is the highest. Then the jury's got to agree with that. Then after the jury recommends, it goes to the judge, and then the judge has to say, okay. Then there's a whole long process of appeals, and in that process, over the years, 120 death row criminals have actually had their sentence reversed or dissolved. I'm missing the word here, but commuted because of new evidence that's come to light. So even though the highest bar in the land legally has been met many, many times, sometimes things come to light that actually it wasn't that person. So you have to remember that they have to go through the process all the way through. And even though we all have this feeling with what we've seen so far, we're not there yet.
I think there's pretty much a 0% chance this isn't the guy. I mean, this is probably the guy, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve a fair trial. So what else are people saying?
Okay, so a lot of people are commenting right now. Kristen Rosler says, seriously, yes, he is guilty, and there's plenty of evidence.
Sure.
Okay, but Mary Ellen
go ahead. To her point, like Walt said, there can be all the evidence in the world, but if it wasn't collected in a way that follows our legal system's processes, you can't use that evidence in court. And that is what we want to make sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. That's what we're doing this for. Exactly.
I mean, let's remember OJ. They found OJ's blood and DNA at the crime scene. His DNA was there, but because they didn't have the chain of custody from the collection to the lab, proven all the way through, there was a possibility that maybe it was tampered with, and that doubt was enough in that case for some of the jurors to not convict him.
That was a unique moment in time, that trial.
That's true.
I don't imagine that whole thing with all that was going on could happen again, and I think the legal system really learned a lot after that whole thing.
There are no signs in front of the courthouse saying "Free D'Angelo." That is not happening.
Not today.
You're right, but that's what for some of the jurors was the issue.
Okay, so Rebecca Jean Britton has a good question. She says, if he admits that he is the killer, do we call him the killer at that point before the trial?
I would also tell you, I've been involved in this too.
Okay.
There are a lot of crimes that people say they did it and they didn't do it because they are chronic I did it people. They do it because there's something wrong with them. They are people that every time there's a crime, they go, I did it for whatever reason. So just because you admit to something doesn't mean that you actually did it. If he says, I did it, at this point, there may be enough evidence to convict him. I still think he has a card to play to get off death row, is to just go, okay, I want my life spared. I will tell you exactly who I killed, where I killed. There's about 12 people you don't think I killed that I did kill. And all of these families want the proverbial closure. And I think that the justice system would probably let him, in exchange for the closure and to help all these still suffering families. If he would give up all his secrets, my gut feeling is he's not that kind of guy. And at this point in time, I don't think he really cares, because if you go on death row, you're going to die a natural death anyway. There really is nothing.
Well, we asked our viewers on Morning Blend a couple of weeks ago when this first came out, do you think that the death penalty is the right penalty for him? And so many people said no, that it wasn't, and that they don't want to see him put to death. They want to see one justice, get all of their answers, but that's too easy of a death for him. So it's like
they want hard labor.
They want something more for all of the crimes that he has allegedly committed.
Yeah,
we don't know.
People will say being locked up. I mean, even though it seems like, oh, that's the easy way out. I mean, as human beings, being in a cage, essentially like an animal, it will do something to your psyche that may, to some people, affect you more or less. Some people that may not. That may be okay, then at least I have something to eat every day in a bed. I mean, it just depends how you look at it and who the person is.
And you know, just to highlight this one more time, this is such a big story and such a local story. You know, just the other day, I was doing this bike commuting thing, right? And then on the way back, I had researched, was there any incident connected to this that had happened by me? And there was one break-in and rape in this area called the Little Pocket, which is right off I-5.
Okay.
And one of the things that a lot of the crimes are connected to major roadways, where 80 is or 50 and I-5. And I said, oh my gosh, that's like close. 2 miles from my house. So on the way back, I went down the street. I mean, I don't even know why. I was just curious to try and figure out the process of all of this. And I think, you know, I'm just I'm just new to this, like a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you, Walt, having covered many of the reiterations of this coming about and new evidence and new focus on this, and then the ultimate arrest, and now where we are in court, it's just something that carries on, and you either have a casual interest or maybe it happened by your house. That's not just Sacramento. People, just the other day, their district attorney, Joyce Dudley, which coincidentally, when I was working as an assignment person in Santa Barbara, she was the only the only prosecutor that would call me back. So I had this weird history with her. She was always very nice to me. Nice. So it's interesting to see her as the DA. I'm like, oh, there's Joyce Dudley. But anyway, so for Santa Barbara, that's their unanswered question. That's their moment where the person representing them and prosecuting, they need to get in front of a microphone and say, this matters to us, and we're going to follow through in our own court proceedings. So you can't just do it in one place. All these district attorneys have their own evidence, their own reason to button up everything on their end.
So we have a lot of comments coming in that we want to get to. Jim Chandler, where are they going to have the trial? To your question from before about
the last thing I heard was Southern California. That may be. I mean, obviously, all of these counties are going to be involved. So right now, it looks like Southern California. I don't think it can be in Sacramento County. I don't think so.
That's the same situation that Jim is posing here. He's saying, I don't think there's anywhere in California that this man can go and get a fair trial where nobody has heard of him before.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I think it's hard to say that he could go anywhere in the country, but he's got to go somewhere to have a trial.
You could have it in Eureka, and people would have heard about it, but they might not have been exposed to the details of the things that we're talking about.
Okay.
You might be able to find a less tainted jury pool out in the middle of the woods in Humboldt County than you would in Sacramento County.
Thanks for watching us here on the ABC 10 Information Network. If you want to see more stories just like this one, click subscribe.